Welcome to the SRS Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron J. Babiar, and I'm the Training Director of Support Raising Solutions. Whether you're a new ministry worker or a veteran looking to increase your competence and confidence, Support Raising Solutions seeks to bless you in your quest to be a spiritually healthy, vision-driven, fully funded Great Commission worker. Well, my guest this morning is David Livingston. And David has been working with Word of Life for a while and works within their ministry partner development arm, if you will. So David, welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Good to be here this morning with you.
Yeah. Well, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would, and some personal details, if you know, about your family, where you live, that kind of stuff. But then at some point, segue in and tell us a little bit more about how you found yourself in the position of working with support raisers.
Well, very good. Yeah, I would, I guess I'd start back to the day when my wife and I were living in North Florida, just south of Jacksonville, neighboring county down there. And we were working in our local church when a Word of Life missionary came to the area and introduced Word of Life student ministry. At that time, they called them Bible clubs into our church through our youth pastor. And my wife is Earlene. She is my wife of 40 years come June.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're planning a big celebration. And at that time we had 3 daughters, ages 12, 10, and 8, that were very active in our local church, which is only a half mile from where we lived. And anyway, we were, both of us, working in public education. I was in human resources, and she was a public teacher with secondary students, and loving life, loving the local church. And God introduced this opportunity for us to be a part of discipling young people through Word of Life student ministries. And it was about a 7-year ride after that launch in 1994, I believe it was. And we began to see such growth in our own personal walk with the Lord. We began to see spiritual and numerical growth in our student ministry, which was way beyond anything we'd ever experienced before. And so ultimately, around 2002, I remember being at a winter conference, being trained by the Word of Life missionary who had by that time discipled me and really poured into my life. His name's Wayne Brown. I got to give a shout out to Wayne every chance I get.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful discipler. And I began to see through those 7-year history, what really biblical discipleship was all about.
Okay.
I thought I knew, but because I was an avid reader of the Bible and study of God's Word and active in my church in a number of different roles, but this was the first opportunity we really had to truly pour into others in a model like 2 Timothy 2:2. But anyway, as they were looking for additional staff in Word of Life local church ministries to help cover all the hot spots in the U.S., to introduce our ministry into other Bible-believing churches of like doctrine, ultimately I began to sense God stirring in that. And at the age of 46, I believe it was, I came home one evening and informed my wife that God had turned my heart, and we candidated with Word of Life in 2002 and actually joined the staff of Word of Life full-time in 2003 after raising support for a year.
Wow.
And
so I'm going to ask you a question right there. So at that point, you were mid-career, pretty well established with a family and probably at least decent paying jobs. And,
yes.
And God kind of called you out of some security with that and into.
Yes, he did. Yeah. In fact, Aaron, we were living on family property. Her mom and dad were in a rural area of a lot of farmland, and her dad owned a lot of property. And when we got married, he deeded 5 acres to us. So I jokingly tell people, I got the land and the wife when I married Earlene. And to make a long story short, I remember, we were in a quite comfortable area with a lot of cousins and family around. And but the truth is, God had prepared my heart for the realization that whom he calls, he equips. And I didn't have really a lot of insight on what it meant to raise support. And I can remember asking Wayne, as I was really mulling this thing over, tell me about that. What's it like? And we had started supporting him personally. It was my first exposure to real giving beyond the tithe. Our local church was a typical Southern Baptist church, a lot of cooperative program giving, which was great. But I'd also seen the value of supporting individuals. And it was through Word of Life, actually, that I began to sense that, there's something biblical about that. I had no idea what I was getting into. All I just knew was this was an exciting new chapter in our life, and I was available to God, whatever he wanted. And I truly believed that if I was faithful to do the work and be rightly related to him, that he would take care of that. And he did. So anyway, we ended up launching in 2003 with 60% of our support. And my local church got behind us big time with individuals. And, it's interesting. We were told that if you will make the connections and share your ministry and make the ask and be quiet and let them respond, you'll find God blessing your faithfulness. And that's exactly what happened there. And it was just exactly like you guys in the book, God Asked, though that book wasn't part of my training because it didn't exist back then.
Right.
We had learned support raising from Doug Armbrecht, another one of our guys who headed up the MPD section, though we didn't call it MPD. He trained us on raising support. He's been to your SRS training. He's now retired from Word of Life. But it was a great ride for us. And ultimately, I found my way into Atlanta area, where I served for 12 and a half years as a area missionary in Northwest Atlanta, and had, I think at the peak of our ministry, about 20, 25 partnerships with local churches that we worked with. And we became a regional coordinator in 2007, which put me in more of an MPD role than ever. It placed me in a position where missionaries that worked in the Southeast region alongside of me were my responsibility to kind of keep up with them and mentor them, handle administrative needs. And part of that was to monitor their support balances and their financial standing.
Right. I remember hearing something with me along those lines that it was, I'm kind of paraphrasing what I heard you say, but you said something along the lines of, I kind of found myself at one point beginning to help others, and it being kind of a part of my job to actually work with people who were raising their support. So it doesn't sound like it's something you set out to do, but it's something that God has blessed you and put you in that role.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I was older than most of the guys in my region, having, come into the ministry in my late 40s. And, because we had a good base of support from back home and maintained good levels of support, I think that we were in a position to kind of help younger guys.
Sure.
We found ourselves in that role. And I told you, when we were in California not long ago, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I'm kind of a rule follower, so I do what I'm told typically. Mm-hmm. And I found, there's really no magic. There is basically, the three-word motto that you guys have of being vision driven and fully funded. When a guy does what he's trained to do, and from the right context of spiritual health, I just found it to be very faithful in bringing in the support.
Yeah, great. It's important now and then that we mention that we have a resource available to those who help train and coach others that are raising support. The SRS network really isn't for everyone, but it is for those who are seeking to shape direction, build infrastructure, elevate training, and multiply coaching in their ministry culture. We can provide individual or organizational access to other support-raising resources in order to help you help others who are within your ministry. Learn more at supportraisingsolutions.org/network. Well, now that you've been doing this for a while and you've had the opportunity to walk with people that, everything from veteran missionaries that may have had some struggles to people that are just getting started, what's one or two lessons that you've just picked up that you find yourself being, that's sort of like a recurring theme when you're coaching and helping others to raise support? Because I don't know exactly what every audience member of this podcast looks like or where they're at in the world or anything else, but I do know that typically people will come towards this podcast because there is some sort of deficiency. Either they didn't get training. They might have had some coaching, but they didn't get training, or it could be the other way around. More likely, actually, they got some training, but they didn't get any coaching. And I've noticed a lot of people that which there aren't a ton of us, but people that kind of sit in our seats, we tend to notice or have some recurring themes that come up in our conversations as we have the heart to try and help people that are just trying to kind of get over that hump, so to speak. So what are one or two of the things that have come across your desk repeatedly, or at least in your conversations?
One of the things is, and I really believe this is, I wish I'd thought about this really early on, and that is the contacts that you have in your starting point. Maybe you've got a couple of hundred names that you can think of people that, you might can share your ministry with. But I've learned that a missionary, as he grows, has got to be consistently vigilant about growing the number of contacts. And we had the privilege of working with, dozens of leaders in every church that we had at least 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 or 12 leaders who were partnering with us to create a discipleship ministry using our stuff. So one of the things I found that was really important was the need to keep growing your list of contacts. We had a church of a couple of maybe 600 people that we had when we left, so we didn't have any problem connecting with people and sharing our ministry. But a lot of the guys that I found who struggled in developing and maintaining good funding are people who've run out of contacts. And so,
right.
It seems to me like that is one of the key points. Wish I'd done a better job of collecting all the data on every leader I connected with at every church, such as emails and things of that nature. But when I'm coaching a guy now, I talk to him about the real value of having a growing database. And your chapter in the book on, or I should say Steve's book, about name storming, that is such an important exercise to help people walk through. I'm dealing with some right now, for instance, who are saying, I have 0 contacts left.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and if they're trying to get to their field and they're running out of contacts, there's not a whole lot you can do to help them, except help them to maybe think through things that they've dismissed or people they've not thought of.
Yeah. There's some math there that I think I had no respect for early on, in understanding that, hey, I have to have a bunch of names so that I have the momentum of sitting down and making phone calls. And so I carry that momentum into getting appointments. So I carry that momentum, but I did it wrong. I know I did. I didn't have a David Livingston in my life. And I would literally kind of scour until I could find 5 or 6 names. Yeah. And then I would only focus on those 5 or 6 people, trying to, make phone calls and try and get a hold of them or text them or try and connect with them. And then when I was done, once I left a voicemail for all 6 or whatever it was, I was like, well, I guess I did my work this week. And I went so slow. It took me a few months to kind of break out of that and be like, oh, maybe I need to call a lot of people because I'm not going to get a hold of everybody.
Right.
A bunch of people. I'm probably going to get a hold of enough to have my 8 or 10 or 12 appointments.
Yeah, right. And that your experience matches what I experienced. A lot of times if I had a goal of 10 appointments and I made 30 phone calls, like a lot of other guys, I thought, well, I've done my due diligence. I've made my 30 calls. And you really have to set up for more than that when you're making your connections. And I've had moments when I've been better at it than others. But typically I'm finding that that's a common theme with men who are struggling or whose support needs to be bolstered upward. And so that's a common theme. Another one that I don't know if you've experienced this, but I heard it loud and clear in everything written by Scott Morton and Steve, and that is, tithing your time for support, to thank your supporters. Mm-hmm. And my wife and I are kind of old school, and we really recognize that our friends back home at the sending church, they really appreciate the handwritten note. And so I find that a lot of the younger guys do not do that. And I'm not railing against millennials or anything like that. I'm just saying that whenever I do find myself in a position to coach and teach on this topic, I really stress hard the value of a handwritten note to your financial supporters. Maybe not every month or every cycle, but every once in a while, connect with them on a real personal level. I have people every single time we go back home to our church down in Florida that send us out. Mm-hmm. So knowing who you're talking with and trying to connect with people like the older folks in our sending church, they're not going to do the kind of communication that's digital. And, we understand that. So, we make an effort regularly to communicate in ways. I did say, too, I would rather have had a bit more emphasis on collecting new phone numbers. When I started out, cellular phones were not commonly in the hands of every individual like they are today. So you had a landline. And so it's a little difficult when you get 10 years removed from living in an area to collect cell numbers, because most folks had dropped their landline. So right now I can't just pick up the phone and call all of my supporters, but those whose records I do have.
Mm-hmm.
A real, I think another added bonus of this age is just while driving, think through those folks and connect with them. You guys do a really good job in the SRS training, I think, to advocate for that kind of connection. It's so important. It's particularly if you're going to want to minister to them through prayer and ultimately count them as partners. They need more than just your prayer letter.
Yeah, they really do. There needs to be a relationship there. And that doesn't mean you're going to be besties, with every one of your supporters. But I will tell you, I'm a digital guy. I'm not an analog guy. In fact, Shadrach and I were laughing yesterday. We were recording a webinar, and he had asked for some slides that he was going to be talking about to be printed out. And I looked at him with kind of a weird look, and he goes, you're not going to let me get away with that, are you? And I said, Steve, I think if I just hang out with you every day, we're going to save a few trees around here.
Well, I get that too from some of the younger guys once in a while. But hey,
there's value in it. And I tell you, I don't even like to handwrite stuff. I really don't. However, even though I'm a digital guy, I'm a guy that has all my books on Kindle and even my old seminary books. If I've replaced them, I've just, I've given the book away or sold it at a garage sale and bought it on Kindle. But what I found is that's not everybody. And in fact, that's not even a generational thing. My wife is Gen X.
Yeah.
And, boy, she wants paper. And we have kids, and two of my kids are straight up, they want a paper book. They don't want to read it.
Sure.
Yeah. The other two are more like me. And so there's not a moral issue there, but there is a communication issue when it comes to thanking people.
Oh, absolutely. And the same holds true for, those folks who might lean towards social media or whatever. I'm finding out, I could connect a lot more faithfully on social media if I chose to. Mm-hmm. And so I've learned I have to push past my disdain for that medium, and because I don't really like trolling Facebook. I do it. But there are a lot of my supporters out there who would use Messenger. And so not a lot maybe, but a good number of them. So connecting or having my wife connect with the ladies, things like that. Yeah. It's a good thing to do. And one other thing came to my mind as we were thinking through things I've learned. The adage I heard from Scott Morton's book first was let the donor decide. Mm-hmm. And I think that's such an important concept, and you guys reinforce it really well. And that is, you just don't know where God's going to match his desire for the Great Commission work to go forth and to use you as an instrument to get that work done, and to use someone else as an investor to help get it done. You don't know where that matchup's going to occur.
Right.
We have such a mindset toward sizing people up and determining, well, they really can't afford to give. They're going through this, or they're a widower or whatever, a widow. But I have got some really faithful supporters who stretch themselves to support not just me, but other missionaries. And I can remember finding out, wow, this is something that I hesitated to even go to that person. But based on what I was trained to do and the thinking that, you don't ever know that you might be depriving them of a blessing, that they want to be a part of a Great Commission work. And honestly, I don't think there's anything greater than pouring yourself into young people in America right now, or across the world, wherever we are. So I feel like we have a noble vision, one that's God-shaped. So I don't mind sharing it. In fact, I have some of my greatest moments of joy when I'm able to stand in front of a potential donor and share what we do, why we do it, and invite them to be a part of it. But the key thing is I try not I'm learning to not size them up, but if they're a connection, they love Jesus. They probably love young people. They may not know me very well. And sometimes the people who are just peripheral, contacts of mine have been the ones that have got behind me quickest and fastest and best. So it's amazing how that works out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
You've seen that too, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's, I think I've said this, before. I say well over half of my support team are not people that I knew beyond that peripheral, or maybe at all, before I started raising support. So God had a way of bringing the people that I needed, which are different, quite honestly, different from the people I wanted. There were some people that I was like, they got my back forever, and they really didn't. I thought they did.
Sure.
And there were others that, they did. And so, you learn a lot in the process. And I'm really thankful for my team now, because I feel like they really pray, and they don't just give, they pray. But I also know that some of the people that I really wanted to be on my team, they were never going to have that investment. And even if they might have had some bucks, they weren't going to have the investment that I really needed from not just a physical material, but from a spiritual standpoint. So
it's sometimes surprising where the funds come from, and sometimes from where they don't come. And I was told to expect that, and I'm finding it to be really true.
There's usually somebody that comes back to me, and not every month, but pretty often, someone will circle back around to me. Maybe they went to a boot camp or something else, and they'll say a version of, well, I heard you say that, but I thought, you don't know the people in my family, or you don't know the people in my church. I'm going to be fully funded in 2 weeks. And
that's a lot easier said than done.
The reality kicks in. So,
right.
I said something else I want to circle back on real quick too. I do really value, even though I'm a digital guy, I do value some ink to paper. And I really only value that because some of my supporters value it. Otherwise, I'd probably never do it, to be honest with you.
Right. Yeah.
I'd say all my supporters, almost all, if not all, they get a card at least once a year.
Right.
And then I hand do a little note and, sign it at least once a year, like around, we do kind of a thank you mail every year around Thanksgiving.
Right.
And then sometimes there's one other. And that just kind of depends. But I'd say in an average year, I text with or pray for or message or whatever, all my supporters a handful of times. But even though my main newsletter is 95% of the time just a digital thing, there are a few of those hand touches that some people, they might not ever read the newsletter, that they're only getting on their phone, and they scroll. If they see it, they scroll through it in 30 seconds. Yeah. But they're going to open that thank you card or birthday card or anniversary card or whatever else, and they're going to remember that, oh, you know what? They don't just see me as a ATM machine. We have a relationship, and they're actually saying thank you. That's significant.
Well, that's huge, and I think your whole principle there is you know your people and their preferences. And I think it could be said this way: everybody likes to be thanked. Mm-hmm. And the more personal the thank you, the better. So when you're able to reach out through text, that's very personal. When I get texts from guys that I'm interacting with, and I know they're thinking of me at that moment, it's not a group text, it's me. That speaks volumes, and just as good as a personal thank you in paper. But to know, here's a subset of my group that doesn't really do digital stuff. I'm going to make sure that they get something in writing with my hand script, and my wife is going to take part in that. We're going to talk to them about, how grateful we are, but also find ways to find out what they're going through. So I think your point is really right on. You just have to know who you're talking with, and make sure they feel appreciated. Yeah.
Hey, self-disclosure here too. I'm going to tell myself a little bit. Mm-hmm. I do not like to write things out. I have a hard time reading my own writing.
Yeah.
So on occasion, I get some help. I have somebody help me handwrite stuff, just because I really I have so much disdain for it, even though I value it. I think part of it is I'm slow. I have a hard time writing in a way that has some clarity to it. And so, I'll kind of coach my partner with that a little bit, and they'll help me out, and they'll help me write multiple cards and stuff like that. But it isn't. We're not saying that you have to do every little bit of the work. In fact, I'll usually have somebody, even help me. Now, remember, I'm several years into this, but I'll have somebody help me with like addressing envelopes or putting the stamp on it, or even getting to the post office. Over time, I've been able to kind of streamline that a little bit, but that's not where I started.
No, I get it, and I came from a background kind of totally opposite of yours. I was a journalism major in college, and I worked for a boss once who said, why write a page when a paragraph when a page will do. She was willing to take pen in hand. And so I do find sometimes it's hours of investment when I'm writing to my entire database, like we did in Thanksgiving, just a thank you to each one of the donors, not my entire mailing database, but the donors. But my wife and I team up on it. We recognize, it is part of the right attitude and approach toward your donors. And so when we allocate 10 hours over a 2-day span to do that, it's time well spent. But the risk I run is that I'll write, more than I should. But I haven't really had anybody criticize me for that. I think it's just basically working within your strength and doing what is the best thing for your people.
Yeah. Oh, you're kind of like the graphic designers. I always love to pick on graphic designers because I love them and I need them and I can't do their work. But I have a good buddy that he was similar. He was redesigning his entire newsletter layout every 2 to 3 months.
Oh my goodness!
He had to say, buddy, is that really more about you saying thank you and communicating well, or the fact that you like to be creative? And and he's like, yeah, I'm probably wasting a lot of time doing that. I probably can just do it once a year.
Yeah. I know we get that too. I teach a segment on newsletters and how to develop a proper newsletter at our missionary candidate school. And that part of it, I remember starting out using the old publisher from Microsoft. And, we're dealing now with these younger guys. Many of them come in with their Macs and they've got the capabilities using the digital resources. I've stopped even providing templates. I just say, do something and let's look at it. We'll look at it. If we know bad when we see it, so let's just take a look at it when you're done your part. Some of them take an interest in what we put out there, but that's a changing world as well. I mean, what you put out digitally has changed so much from what I was trained when I was in journalism school. Yeah, and for the better, I'm sure.
Well, David, I appreciate your time today. For the listeners that have stayed with us through the end of this, I like to throw in a reminder every now and again that support raising is not this simple thing. It's not a push a button and get it all done. David and I have both found that, quite honestly, you need some good biblical research and study. It's good to have a great book, such as, I know you, David, you mentioned The God Ask and Scott Morton's Funding Your Ministry. Both are excellent books. But then we have found that a lot of people need training, not just somebody talking to them, but really be involved in a training. So I know that Word of Life does their own internal training. And of course, we offer the SRS boot camps that on a monthly basis in the U.S. And every now and then we're doing one internationally. And we just know that that training aspect it's a little undersung. People don't realize how key that is. But then the last one is coaching. It's best if you have a coach. If you have a David Livingston in your life who is walking alongside you. And if you don't have that person, we encourage you to find someone. Find somebody who's spiritually healthy, vision-driven, and fully funded. They've been there before. They're still there. And they might be willing to walk with you and kind of help you get through the challenges, particularly in raising your initial support. But even if you're fully funded and it's kind of sliding every now and then, find somebody who's consistently has support and find out why and let them coach you. So anyway, well, David, brother, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate the conversation that we commit to this podcast. And thank you for the work that you're doing through Word of Life and helping launch global missionaries. And I appreciate it, my friend.
Hey, it's been fun and glad to do it, Aaron. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode. We would love to hear your ideas for future content. Please visit supportraisengsolutions.org/feedback to share your thoughts and questions. Also, wherever you download your podcasts from, be sure to subscribe for future episodes and come back each week to gain more insight into the process of building and maintaining your personal support team.